Yo, 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 no maniacs. Welcome to the show. This is Nomad Live, all Bears all the time in conjunction with Sports Zone Chicago and the Superback, who will be here a little bit later, Sean Sierra. But hey, guys, welcome to the show one more time, man. Glad to see all you guys in the chat. And as you guys are trickling in, this is a show that I've been wanting to do for quite some time and for a bunch of different reasons. Very rarely are we lucky enough to really get a chance to, I'm an ex-football player and we got ex-football players on the panel. And, we can bring you a certain amount of X's and O's and, how the processes go with a football game and different nuances that goes on there. But very rarely do we get a chance to speak with someone that's got 30 years of experience and dedication to this game that we all love. And that's what it really is. It's dedication, 30 plus years of experience of that process and walking that walk, that lifestyle of putting a team together and a product together that is competitive and that can push for a championship. Because as you guys know, by looking at the thumbnail, what we want to know from Greg, and multiple things, by the way, but in particular, what are the earmarks of a championship roster? And who else better that should we talk to than Greg Gabriel? He's the one guy that I know for sure that wouldn't know what that would look like in the comparison between, that 2006 season when we made the run and right about now. What are the similarities? Are we there? Is the question that I definitely want to ask them. And you guys that have questions, hopefully, prayerfully, we can get Greg stay around a couple more extra minutes, maybe answer some questions. But without further ado, let me bring on our special guest, Greg Gabriel. Greg, look, I just wanted to tell you, man, personally, I feel privileged that you're here. And I just want to thank you from my heart that, this game that we all love, how you guys dedicated your time and your efforts to making sure we put a great product out there on the field. And I believe those are some great rosters that you guys were responsible for. I just wanted to say thank you, man, for bringing your expertise to the show and letting us know what it was like during that time to put this all together. I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. Now, did I pay you enough to say all those nice things?
Well, man, I think you've earned them, man. Anyone that's had that amount of experience and is here to tell the story about it, I think you're a treasure, man. And I don't just say that, I mean that, because, the processes of putting together a roster from beginning, a breakdown from beginning to where you get to the point where you're competitive and feeling like you have what you need to make the push that you want to make. That process is what I can't wait to talk to you about. But let's get the fans. I'm sure there's somebody in here. Most of these guys in here I see in the chat probably watch you, and I really get upset when I get to thinking about this, Greg, because I used to faithfully watch you guys live, you and Aldo, every freaking week. And now all of a sudden, now that we're doing podcasts, I can get in there here and there, but I always watch it on replay. But I love to chat with you and pick your mind about what was going on. So I do regret not being able to get in you guys' chat and talk like I normally would. But what's the how you doing, by the way, man? How's life?
Life is good. Hey, I guess I'm semi-retired. I'm still doing a lot of work now. Not for a club. I do some individual stuff for clubs. They may ask me for some opinions on stuff, of which, of course, I'll write it up and send it to them, and they'll send me a check. But most of my work now is I'm on the board of advisors for the East-West game, and then I work for some agent groups. Because the agents now, they want evaluations on players just like the teams do, because they have to they want to go out and make the right decisions on players when they're going out and recruiting. And the recruiting from the agents aspect has changed. It used to be, their junior, senior year in college, they'd go after them. But now, because of NIL, they can start representing them when they come out of high school. So it's really increased the workload for those guys. And they, of course, pass it on to people like myself.
Right. And you are with Windy City Gridiron. Why don't you tell everybody what you got going on there? Have you put out something recently, or you got something?
There'll be something going out this afternoon sometime on the defensive ends. I've been going doing a position by position preview. So the last one was the defensive tackles. The defensive ends is coming up today.
Wow. So, I know you only have a certain amount of time, and I want to make sure what I say to you and what I ask you is really to the point. But, one of the things, because I met a couple of scouts here and there when I was in Atlanta. One of my ex-coaches ended up, he was a tight ends coach over in Atlanta during that, that era. Who they have over there? What's his name? Thomas Dimitroff, when he was there. He was
Tommy's a good guy. I've known Tommy forever.
Yeah. I got to meet him. He is a nice guy. I went over there to Flowery Branch, got to check him out, and he introduced me to. I think he was trying to rope me into being a scout, and I was just like, that's took me out to beat Buffalo Wild Wings and tried to rope me into it, and I was just like, I don't know if I could live that life. It's a lot of dedication, I mean. I go ahead and tell them what that's like.
It's easier now than it was when I started, and the reason is strictly technology. Okay, when I started, and Aldo's been over here, so he's seen it. In my basement, I've got an old 16 millimeter projector, and we used to have to carry those suckers around, and they're heavy, and from school to school because we watched 16 millimeter tape, or film, not tape, and we did that for a few years, and then we got into different kinds of videotape. Finally, the beta, and now everything's digitized and it's simple. You don't even have to make a school call in order to watch, individual game tape, because it goes out, every Monday. That stuff goes out to the league office, really, to NFL Films, and NFL Films then supplies it to the rest of the team. So you have all the stuff really right away, where back in the day, we used to have to wait weeks for certain game film. So for the better half of the first half of the season, better part of the first half of the season, you were watching the previous year's tapes unless you were making a school call. So it was really imperative to make those school calls, and you were on the road a lot. I had 5 years when I was on the road, over 200 nights. And, that cost you things. It cost me my first marriage, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's, talking to those scouts, that's what seemed to resonate with me is time on task. And, you really have to be on the go, and you have to, it's a lifestyle that you have to be willing to accept. And you have to have, if you're going to have a mate in your life, you have to have a certain type of mate that can, be understanding and be able to go through all of that, because you're gone quite often. And oh my goodness, some of the stories I heard about the diet on the road, I was just like, wow.
Unless you're disciplined, it's easy to gain weight. And I've had some falls where I did, but I out literally every day, if possible, do at least anywhere, and you're not going to be able to lift that much, but you can do cardio, and I'd go and I could run. And I can't run now. I've had 2 knee replacements, but back then I'd go out and try to run anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour every day. And part of it was just to clear up your head. I'd do it as soon as I got back to the hotel. I'd go out for a run, and then I'd watch film that night or tape that night and write reports. But if you don't do that, then it's easy to get fat, because you're eating on the run all the time. Fast food places, McDonald's might be your best friend. And, all of a sudden, you come back home in December, and you're like 2 sizes too tight in your pants or whatever. And it's like, wait, I got to clean up my act again. But overall, I think I stayed pretty disciplined. So that never really happened to me, but I've seen it happen with other people. It happens with coaches. Coaches eat a lot during they're there for 12 to 15 hours a day, especially about 4 days a week. And they drink a lot of coffee while they're there. Part of it's just nervous energy. And Parcells, I remember when I worked with Bill for 7-8 years in New York, and he was, always gaining weight in the fall. And then in the spring, he'd have to try to lose it again. And he'd go through the same damn cycle next fall.
All I know is in college, I know those coaches, there's a lot of booze in those offices too, man, in those desk drawers. The scotch, I come over there, in our facility when I was in college. I'd go over there late at night, I'd see lights on and stuff. I'd go in there, work out, do whatever. But, those guys were pretty saucy by the time I got over there to that building. And they're up. I mean, and it was wild that they were spending that much time in the building because, pretty quickly when you get to college, guys will be trying to recruit you to be a coach later on. I'm like, I'm not thinking about anything like that. Just the amount of time you have to spend on tasks. And so that's why I thank you so much, because I know what the dedication looks like. And that was a walk that you had to take. And wow, what a great one, man. 30 something plus years. But you know what people came here to talk about, Greg, is that process that you saw the Bears go through during your era, during your run with the team, what you guys had to do to build that roster from A to Z and be able to push it towards a championship run. I think people want to know right off the bat. You've seen this breakdown, this team get torn down, and you've seen the pieces get put back together. And, I think there was a Indianapolis GM that I think I remember an interview about. He was talking about how many blue players that you need in order to make a serious run at a championship. I think he said 8 to 10, I believe. And
there's theories about that. I don't know if I necessarily agree. But, when we came, we inherited one team when we got here and a coach, and we didn't come until June. So we got here right around now. What's today? June. I started June 13th, 2001. So it'll be 23 years ago tomorrow that I started my career with the Bears. And because it was late, we couldn't do any changes for that year. And Jerry was told that when he was hired. He was hired a couple days before me, obviously. And so we had to basically just keep building on that roster. We were under the impression that we could make a change with the coaching staff at the end of that season if we desired. But hell, we went out and won the division, won 13 games, and went to the playoffs. So, that original idea that was given to Jerry by ownership, that went out the window right away. And so we had Dick for another 3 years. And it's not that we didn't like Dick. I just don't think that philosophically we were always on the same page. But, we had that strong year in 2001. Then it started going south again in 2002 and 2003. So after the 2003 season, we went out, we made a change in coaches, brought in Lovey, and basically had to strip down the team and start all over again, more so on the defensive side, because it was, implementing a new style of defense, which is the same scheme that they're using now, basically the same scheme. And, Greg Blotch was the defensive coordinator, a good guy, good friend of mine, under Dick Duran, and Greg's philosophy on defense versus Lovey's was like a total 180. I mean, if you go back and you look at those lines we had under Greg Blotch, it's like one defensive lineman that we had that was under 300 pounds, and that was Alex Brown for Dick's last year, 2003. And, Alex was like 248, 250 pounds, but all those other guys, Ted Washington, Keith Traylor, they were pushing 375. Philip Daniels was over at the other end. He was about 320. And then some backups were 3 bills and better. So it was a big 4-man front that really played a 3-man front type of scheme, and that they were doing a lot of 2-gapping to free things up for the linebackers, Brian Urlacher and such. So then when Lovey came in, we're going to implement Lovey's Tampa 2, and you need an entirely different type of defensive lineman. You got to get a more athletic defensive lineman. So we got rid of all those guys except Alex Brown, and then had to bring in new guys. We drafted 2 guys that first year, Tommy Harris in the first round, Tank Johnson in the second. We had to go out and sign some players. But we got guys that ended up being fits, for the scheme. So, but it was hard doing that. And luckily when we came in, we had 2, actually we had 3 fits for the linebacker. We had, Brian Urlacher for the Mike, Lance Briggs, to play the Will and Hunter Hillermeyer to play the Sam linebacker. Now, today you don't even use that Sam that much. Hell, the Sam might be playing 15 to 20% of the time, if that. Because your base defense is now really a 4-2-5 with the nickel back being in a lot more than the Sam linebacker. But again, it was just, finding players that could play within the scheme. We found basically all new players in the secondary except for Mike Brown, new corners, new safeties. It was just, starting from scratch and finding players. What we did, and I'm sort of blabbling here, but we put together not only a philosophy, but you had to put together a profile for each position. So it was in writing. Okay, this is what your right end looks like. This is what your left end looks like. This is what you want in a 3 technique and your 1 technique, as far as size, speed, strength, everything. And so when the scouts went out on the road, they knew exactly what to look for. So, we weren't looking for the type of guy when we're going out and scouting defensive linemen. We weren't looking for the type of guys we were looking for when Dick Duran was here. We're looking guys, total opposite guys who could shoot gaps, play in a 1-gap scheme versus the big 2-gap guys.
By the way, you guys were killing those drafts during that time. I mean, absolutely. Did Lovey give you guys kind of his grocery list of exactly what he was looking for? I think you kind of alluded to that he was looking for players with certain measurables and things like that.
Well, what we did was, 2 things. Number one, we assigned a scout to a position, and he stayed with that position basically the whole time Lovey was here. So like Chris Ballard, who's now the GM of the Colts. Chris Ballard had the defensive backs. I did the defensive backs with Chris. Mark Sadowski, who's now with the Steelers, did the defensive line. Teddy Monago is now with the Rams, did the linebackers. So, and they spent time, Bob Babich was the linebacker coach for most of that time. So Teddy would spend a lot of time with Bob and learn exactly what we were looking for at the different linebacker positions, both athletically, size, strength, that type of thing. Same thing with Mark on the defensive lineman and myself and Chris with the defensive back. So, we got a really good idea of what to look for when we were on the road. So when we graded a player, you had a number grade on a player. Let's say you gave a player a 6-7, and we had a long system. So I'm abbreviating a lot here to explain this, but part of it was a number grade. Let's say he was a 6-7. And then after the 6-7, you'd have a plus, nothing at all, or a minus. And the grade told you what kind of talent he was, the 6-7. A plus meant he was a fit for what we do. So that'd be a guy we'd be interested in drafting. When it just was nothing, we called that a vanilla, just a plain 6-7. Mm-hmm. That meant that you could live with him within the scheme. He could play in the scheme, but he wasn't a perfect fit. There might be something that he lacked to make him the perfect fit. But a minus meant, guy's a hell of a player, but he just can't play in this scheme. And a lot of times with your big defensive lineman or a slow linebacker or something like that, be those guys. They might be really good football players. Another team might want to take them high based on what they're looking for, but they weren't for us. And anybody that had a minus wasn't even on our draft board come draft day.
Wow, that's interesting. Was there a time when you were with not just us, and this is a little bit away from what we were talking about, but just something I've been wanting to ask. Did you get a sense of when sometimes every now and again, whether you were with the Bears, Bills, or the Giants, that you were witnessing something special? Whether you looked at it on tape, you went to go see him live, however you viewed it, but do you remember seeing something?
You're talking about play. You're talking about a particular player.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you'd see that every year. You'd go out. Easy or good players are easy to scout. They just jump out. The hard guys to scout are also the hard guys to write up, because you got to sit and try to find the right words to put in the report, because the great player You can say Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze, stuff like that. They're easy to write up. They jump out on tape. They're real easy to write up. You know what they can do right. You know what their weak points are. Everything is pretty obvious. It's the guy that's, let's say, Austin Booker, who the Bears took in the 5th round. I had a 3rd round grade on him, and I know some other teams did. But, you had to look at him and say, oh, he only played one year of production. He started off at Minnesota, played 1 year at Minnesota, the first year he redshirted. And then the second year when he was at Minnesota, he was just a backup, didn't play a lot. So he transfers to Kansas because he wants to get more playing time, and the scheme fit his skill set a little better. And all of a sudden he goes there and he plays a lot, leads the team in sacks. So you're thinking, but he's undersized, but he's got the length that you want. He's got the speed and athleticism that you want. But then when you look at it, because he's kind of in between, he's not the perfect guy, but he's not a guy that you don't want either. So just trying to write those guys up to really describe them the way you want to describe them as a player, that's more difficult. And makes the job really interesting than, getting the good guys right. That's easy to do.
So the reason is for me asking that question, because I go back to that 2006 season, and I remember that off season in particularly well, man. And I kept saying to myself, I was like, this team is missing something, and I can't really put my finger on it. And I didn't know I had no idea which way you guys would go in the draft as far as who you guys were coveting. I wasn't that tied into the situation as I am now. But when you guys got Devin Hester, man, oh man, did I hit the ceiling that, because I'm trying to figure out what is this team missing, and that was exactly it. And so out there at that camp over there in Bourbonnais, when you guys had public practices, man, I could hear audible gasps in the audience, man, every time this kid touched the ball, and I was just like,
well, don't forget now, as a rookie, he wasn't playing offense. He was playing. Right. He was playing corner, and Devin was not an easy guy to scout either. When you saw him return, that was easy. I mean, and there's one return that really just jumps out, and I think it wasn't his last year at Miami. I think it was his second last year. It was against Duke. He catches a punt, somewhere around and you can find it on YouTube, somewhere around the 10-yard line, and he must have made 8 guys miss in the course of that play. And you just saw the special in him. And that, and I had asked him one time, because he and I said, how do you react as quickly as you do? And he said, when I got the ball in my hand, everything else seems to be in slow motion. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's really a good way of describing it, because he just, he just reacts so quickly to guys that have the angle on him to make a play, yet he can figure out a way to juke them. And it's like he's got, eyes all around his head, not just in front, because he had an innate sense of feeling where opponents were coming from.
It's absolutely special. I'm thinking back on which highlight you talk. I think it's the one when he kind of did a pirouette, kind of did a 360 and took off down the field for like about a 65-yard return or something like that. I think
it was a touchdown return, but I mean, he did a couple figure eights and everything else in that. I mean, he just made the whole team miss, the whole Duke team. I mean, it was a hell of a return. And if you only saw one return, that was the one you needed to see, because it sold you. But it was like, where the hell are we going to play him? Because at Miami, he played 3 different positions in 3 years. He's a running back, a receiver, a defensive back. And Lovey went down there. The owners' meetings in March that year were down in Palm Beach. So it might have been Orlando, but I know it was Florida. So Lovey sneaks out one day, goes down to Miami, and works out Devin. And there was another defensive back we were interested in. He went in the first round. His name was Jennings. I don't remember his first name. Seattle took him in the first round. And so Lovey came back with, with as far as Jennings, just a glowing review. Dave Tobe had to do a lot of the work on Devin as far as we wanted him as a return guy. but Lovey thought he could play corner in the league, but he was going to be a project. And that first year, he was like our number 5 corner. He played, but he didn't play a lot. But what happened that we turned him into a receiver the next year is that because you got a limited roster size, you had 10 guys on the practice squad then versus 15 now or 16 now, is that Devin was the scout team receiver and nobody could cover his ass. So, and he was catching everything. So it was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. We're going to get the ball in his hand as a returner. We're going to get the ball in his hands as a receiver. But it took time for him to, learn how to make plays, to learn how to play the position comfortably, because he only played 1 year receiver in college and he wasn't a starter that 1 year in college. So, it took him a while. In fact, I was watching a game the other day, on the NFL Network. They have those NFL replays, and they had a game. It was I think it was 2008, a December game when we played New Orleans here in Chicago, and we jumped out like 21-7, fell behind, and then came back with a last second, actually an overtime field goal by Robbie Gould. But Devin just had a hell of a game in that game. And you saw how good he could be as a receiver. But I think, part of it was Kyle Orton's last year. The next year we had Jay Cutler. I don't know if Jay had as much confidence in Devin as Kyle Orton had. Then, Martz came in and a different offense. So, with Devin, you had to you didn't want to make a lot of changes, and a lot of changes were starting to happen. So I don't think he ever became the receiver he could have become had everything remained the same. But hell, he's still going into the Hall of Fame in a few weeks. So that's all that matters to me.
That is absolutely all that matters. And yeah, Devin Hester, I can talk all day about him, man. That's the one and only jersey I ever purchased with my own money is a Devin Hester jersey. But I think what people want to know is during that season, that 2006 season, did you guys have a sense ahead of time? Okay, we're here. It's time to go ahead and make this push. Were there signs? What was it about that year? Did you guys get together and say this is that year, or just organically started to happen?
Well, we knew we were going to have a good team. We were in the playoffs the year before. So, and if you recall, during the draft, we had a first round pick, but we traded out of the first round because we wanted to make sure Devin was the key. And we weren't going to take Devin with a first round pick. So we traded out. And then when we traded out, we ended up having 2 second round picks. And we took Devin with one of those second round picks, and Danielle Manning with the first second round pick, Devin with the second one. And Danielle was, another guy, great athlete. First, we thought he was a corner, and then Lovey thought, well, this is after his first year. Well, maybe he's the perfect nickel guy, but ended up, he shouldn't have just fucked with him and just played him at safety, where he ended up playing, and he was a pretty good safety. But overall, I think, we thought we had a lot of leadership, and that was one of the keys to that team, was that the leadership was special, especially, really on both sides of the ball. But the leadership overall was just really, really good. Yeah, Urlacher, Briggs, Tillman, Gunlier, Tommy Harris to an extent. All players, they were really good leaders. And the offensive line was just loaded with them. Obviously, Kreutz, number one, and then Ruben Brown, Ruben Garza. All these guys, on top of being good players, they were great leaders. And you got to have that, because they run the locker room and they run practices, so to speak. So if you're fucking up a practice, excuse my language, it's all right. You're not going to get away with it, because the players are going to jump on you. And I think that's what those guys did. And so like I said, we knew we had a good team. And then we started off that season, we started off on the road up in Green Bay, and we beat Green Bay. In fact, if you recall, Devin had his first opening week, and he has a return for a touchdown, a punt return. And we beat Green Bay pretty good that week. So right then, we knew we were pretty good. And I think we won our first 5 or 4 out of our first 5. But then it's in October, and we're out in Arizona, and Rex has probably the worst game of his career, 4 turnovers. We're behind 20-0 or something like that. And we come back and win that game, and the offense didn't score a touchdown. They got some field goals, but Devin had a return. Mike Brown, Alex Brown caused had a strip sack. Mike Brown picked it up. Mike Brown picked it up, ran it in for a touchdown. We had another defensive touchdown, some field goals, and we came back and won that game. And I remember saying to Jerry after, I go, games like this, when you're totally outplayed, especially on one side of the ball, and you're making mistakes and you're facing a lot of adversity, yet you still come back and win, and it was on the road. I said, Jerry, this is what makes a team or leads a team to a championship. And that, a similar thing happened when I was in New York and we were playing San Francisco. And I don't know if you remember the play, but Mark Bavaro caught a seam pass, maybe 15 yards down the field, but he ended up carrying about 4 or 5 49ers on his back for another 17, 18 yards. And he just refused to go down. Well, that game was over right then and there because our team just blew them out the rest of the game. Well, it was that same type of game because up until that point, we were losing. And so when you overcome adversity like that in a particular game, in a big game, and on the road, it just brings you that much more together and shows the team that, we're freaking good and we can beat anybody no matter what the circumstances are.
So our producer, J2K, he brings up a point. He's talking about that Arizona game. Rex had 6 turnovers, scored 0 touchdowns, and the greatest defense and special teams comeback of all time. I don't recollect that game that much. What do you recollect about that one, Greg?
Well, I was there. I remember it. So, and that's why, and in fact, I was watching a replay of it not long ago either. So I remember it even better. So, but yeah, it was a great game. It was a Monday night game. And it was just, like I said, I went over, we were sitting in the press box and Jerry was 3 seats from me. And after the game, I just said to him, I go, this is going to be a difference maker. This is what's going to make us become a champion this year.
Right.
And, we won the NFC title, but we didn't win the Super Bowl. But, we had a damn good football team.
A damn good one. I think you all should have won that.
Well, we didn't. So
I know. But okay, you touch one earmark, and that's probably the most important one, having leadership in the building. You touched that earmark. And so what do you see as the other earmarks from your recollection? What do you need in that building? Do we have the those blue players? I feel like if we're not there, we're trending that way really, really fast. I feel like we have enough to make a push, minus the quarterback and him getting enough reps.
Well, we had a lot of Pro Bowl type players there back then. And yeah, players that you'd call blue players. We had a bunch of those too. So we had leadership, we had talent. We were strong at just about every position. So we had enough to get us to the top, and we won the NFC with that. This team, I think it's still a question mark. People say, oh, they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not trying to be negative, but there's only been twice in the last 13 years that a team with a rookie quarterback has gotten to the playoffs. First one was 2012, and that was Andrew Luck's rookie year with the Colts. And the next time was last year with Stroud. So there have been a lot of quarterbacks drafted first or second in the draft that have been turned out to be pretty good players, and their teams didn't do anything. So it's not a given that this is going to happen. But when you look at the way the defense played the second half of last year, and they got everybody back, they've added some additions. I still think they're one player away. I think they still need another edge player. And the type of players they added on offense to help Caleb as a rookie, they got a chance. But they got to come out of the gate fast. You got to go in the first 4 games. You got to go at worst 2-2 and perhaps 3-1. And if that happens, then you got a chance. But anytime you're playing with a rookie quarterback, and obviously you got to have luck, and your key guys got to stay healthy. But when you're playing with a rookie quarterback, there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be mistakes, regardless of this kid could become one of the best of all time, but that doesn't mean he's going to do it as a rookie. Hopefully he can, and hopefully he has the wherewithal and the want to be great right away. And if that's the case, and with the supporting cast that they have, maybe they can do it. But we still got to see it. We haven't seen them play real football yet. They've been playing two-hand touch so far. So, once camp opens and they start playing real football and they get into the preseason, I think we're going to find out a lot more. Flus had a press conference today because the rookies were still here. All the veterans went home after mini camp last week, but the rookies were still here through this week, and they had their last outside practice today. And Flus was talking about at his presser that he is – they're still going over the guidelines for the preseason. But, like last year, Stroud played like 65 or 70 snaps in the preseason. And you compare that to what Justin played last year, and it's like 3 times as much as far as snaps in the preseason. You got to get – there's a chance he can get hurt, but you got to get him plays. You got to get him play time. And what helps is you got the extra preseason game. If there's ever a good year to have that extra preseason game, a Hall of Fame game, it's this year because you've got a lot of new players and a rookie quarterback.
Greg, I would imagine you feel pretty good about the depth on defense. I would say I know I don't feel absolutely great about it. I think they're 1 or 2. I think they need a fat guy in the middle. I think they need another big guy to back up Billings. I don't know how you feel about them in the veteran free agent market on the defensive end. Do you see a process of them, having to put those pads on these guys that they have in camp now and kind of waiting to feel that out before they go out in the free agent market and grab a guy?
There's not much out there.
Right, I know.
There's like 2. People say the guy, I can't think of his name, played for the Jets last year, and he's got production as a sacker, but he's a short arm guy. And if you look at the prerequisite of what Flus looks for in defensive ends, it's length. And this guy's got 31.5-inch arms. So I count that guy out. That doesn't mean they wouldn't sign him, but to me, he'd be the last guy they'd go to if they went to anybody at all. There's really 2 guys left. There's Ngakoue and there's Ogba. And neither one is perfect. Ngakoue had probably his worst year as a pro last year. Part of it was through no fault of his own. First half of the season, the Bears, he was the only guy who could rush the passer, and the opponents knew it. So they were trying to take him out of the game, which they did a pretty good job. It wasn't until the Bears got Sweat at the trade deadline on the trade that Ngakoue's play picked up, and then he got hurt and missed the last 4 games. So I think there's a chance they bring him back. The money's got to be right. Or they go out and try to get Ogba. He's got a relationship with Poles. I had this all written up in my article today. Ogba was with Kansas City 2019 when Poles was there. They went to a Super Bowl. He was a starter at defensive end. And he played pretty good for him. So there is a connection there. He is a athletic fit for this scheme, but Ogba hasn't played good the last 2 years. He's going to be 31 in November, so he's not that old. and he got hurt 2 years ago. He bounced back at, I think, 5 sacks last year, 4.5, 5 sacks. But he wasn't playing. Miami had given him a huge amount of money, like $15 million a year, when he signed there in 22, and he wasn't playing up to that $15 million, so they let him go this spring. So he's there. He's better than a body. And like I said, I don't think they have a guy opposite. I think Booker can be that guy, but he's not yet, and he might be a year away. He's a rotational guy now. So to have somebody to be the starter to rotate with Booker, I think they need that guy. And after they get that guy, I think the defense is pretty good. I understand what you're saying about inside, but if you go back on what they did last year, they tried to dress 8 guys or 7 guys on the defensive line in most games. There were games when they dressed 8, but they dressed 4 edge players and 3 inside guys. Because DeMarcus Walker can play inside if you have to play him there, or in the nickel situation, in a pass rush situation. And his best production as a pass rusher has actually been, during his career, has been inside, not outside. But then you've got Gervon Dexter, you got Billings, and you've got Pickens, Zach Pickens. And Pickens, like Dexter, going into the second year, there should be a big jump. And Pickens, I thought when they drafted him, was a natural 3, yet they played him at the 1. And actually that can work to the Bears' advantage because I think he can be the main backup at both positions as far as the rotation goes, and be able to work the 3 and the 1 position. And that way, if he works out good, then you can go into a game and only use 3 defensive tackles on a Sunday instead of having to dress 4. And then I think, the 4th guy will end up being the rookie from Illinois, who's got a chance to be a pretty decent player. I thought, he might be a late round pick, but he had a lot of production at Illinois. He's just, he's a rookie and he's going to be raw.
So if I heard that right, it sounds like you feel pretty good about what they have. You think the defense is strong. Minus the reps that we know this rookie quarterback is going to need in order to get to where they need him to be to perform and make a push. Sounds to me like you feel like they aren't really missing a whole lot. So you're good with the depth. You feel like the rookie just needs reps at his job.
I think they need another edge.
Okay.
I'm not going to, my gut feeling on that isn't going to change.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring in my guys, man. These guys have probably been itching backstage for an opportunity to ask you some questions. And I see the Canuck up top, and we'll give him a chance to start first. You're muted. You're muted, kids. Kid, you're muted.
Of course I'm muted. Mr. Gabriel, great to have you on the Nomad Network. Thanks for joining us, my friend. I'm interested in, I'm going to be a little bit facetious, but I'd like to know if, in your opinion, does Lovie Smith deserve a statue in Chicago?
That's not for me to say. Out in front of the new stadium, wherever the hell they built it.
The new stadium, not the old one. The imaginary new stadium.
Yeah, wherever the hell it ends up being. If I was a betting man, I'd say it's going to be in Arlington Heights. But I don't know if he deserves a stat. He didn't win a championship.
No, he didn't.
Okay, but he put together. We had some pretty darn good teams. We got to the playoffs a lot.
I'm talking more in reference of what just transpired.
I know you were going with that one because they won that. He won that game that actually gave the Bears the number 1 pick a year ago, that allowed them to end up getting the number 1 pick this year. So yeah, from that standpoint, yeah, he did the Bears a favor, but but some of that's happenstance. Do you give a guy a statue for that?
All right,
I love Lovey. So for the
I know you do. That's why I wanted to ask you the question. Let me back off of that just a little bit and rephrase it. If a Super Bowl materializes out of that one game, then does Lovie Smith deserve a statue?
It's the same reason. I mean, he deserves a thank you. I don't know if he deserves a statue. I mean,
I think
loving it's what he did here, and what he did here was good.
fantastic.
But we didn't win any championships.
Yeah, go ahead, Bishop. What do you got?
How you doing, Greg? Thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. I do have one question. You was talking about the defensive lineman, and you had mentioned about the rookie from Illinois. But my question is, what do you think of Mallory?
Deshaun Mallory, by the way.
Deshaun Mallory, yes.
I don't know if I think. You know, in fairness, don't know that much about him to have a strong opinion.
Okay.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Fair
What
enough.
you got?
Yeah.
What you thinking, Sean?
Greg, good afternoon, man. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. How much of a benefit is it that Caleb has had exposure to the playbook a lot sooner than most guys, especially number one overall picks, but has exposure to it due to his his quarterback being close with Shane Waldron. That in addition to him working out with, coincidentally, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze before the draft. And then also with the Hall of Fame game where they get extra practice time due to the fact that game is early. How much will that benefit Caleb and this offense to hit the ground? So to hit the ground running a lot sooner than in any other situation.
Okay, the early stuff, I don't think it makes a big deal. There's only so much they could do because of league rules. And, like people assume that, somebody I read jokingly that he's already got a key to Hallis-Hall. Well, no, after he made his visit here, which was after the combine and actually after the owners' meetings in early April, he was here for a couple of days. He could not come back by league rules until after the draft. Now he could, he could have 3 Zoom calls with him, which he had, but those are limited in length. And whether he physically had a copy or his quarterback coach had a copy of the playbook, I don't have the answer to that. I know it's been written, but I also know what the league rules are. So, but when they could have introduced to him a lot of concepts, terminology, that type of thing prior to the draft. As far as working out with Rome and working out with Keenan Allen out in California, that's getting to know the player a little bit, but you're not actually at that time not working on particular plays because really, and Allen didn't know him. He hadn't been in here, and either did Rome. So it was just learning about the physical attributes about the player. The Hall of Fame game, you're getting an extra week of training camp because you're playing in the Hall of Fame game. And by the way, that extra week of training camp meant that the veterans had one less week of the off-season program. You notice everybody else around the league, except for a couple of teams, are practicing this week with OTAs or mini camps, and the Bills veterans aren't. And that's because they're playing in the Hall of Fame game. So, but still, training camp practice is so much better than OTAs or mini camp practices. So you get an extra week of that and the extra game. It gives them a full extra week going into the regular season. So there's a lot more reps. I think what Flew said today, don't be surprised if Caleb plays 65 to 75 snaps during the preseason. So that, if you played in all 4 preseason games, you're talking 15 to 18 plays a game. And maybe, you switch that around a little bit depending on the circumstances. Maybe there's 1 or 2 games where he's playing a little more and the other 2 games he's playing a little less. But he's going to get play time, and he's going to get play time with the ones. It means you're going to have to give the ones more play time. And I think overall that's going to be beneficial to the whole team. because I think that was one of the reasons they had a tendency to start off slow. They just didn't get enough reps in the preseason last year.
Yeah, I agree with that 110%. Greg, if you don't mind, if you got to go, you let us know. But
I got to go in about 5 minutes, my friend.
Okay. Do you mind answering a couple of questions? I got a few,
Sure.
handful there in the chat that people want to ask you a few things. First guy is Cornelius Squalls. He wants to know, Greg, when you're building a team, whose vision are you trying to realize?
Well, you got a philosophy for that team, so you're trying to work into that. That's what you're visualizing, finding players that fit what you're trying to do with the football team. You know, the old saying, don't put a square peg into a round hole. Don't go out and look at a square peg when you're looking for round hole guys. You got to find fits for the football team.
I think he means, is it the vision of the head coach or the GM or the owner?
Well, it's the head coach's scheme, but the head coach is working hand in hand with the GM. The GM's job is to get the head coach his players. You're picking the head coach because you're buying into the scheme when you hire him the head coach. So you're buying into his vision, for lack of a better word. Now it's the GM's job to get the right players for him. And that's not just talent, it's getting the right people, you know, as far as the character people and the leadership skills, because you got to have leadership. That's one of the reasons, you know, I think they brought Mercedes back this week, is because, you know, as a leader, he's rare, and that's worth wins in the locker room.
So your next question is from FFG style, Greg. He wants to know, Greg, are the trenches the most important thing to solidify?
They're going in the right direction. In fact, I was reading Bigsby's column this morning, and there's people all off season. Got to get a center. We got to get a center. They signed 2 centers during the off season, and I know both of them from their play with the Rams and from their play with the Bills. And I'm from Buffalo, so I'm a big Bills fan. I know what Bates can do. Bates is a hell of a football player, and he's very athletic and he's tough. And he's a huge upgrade over what they had last year in Patrick. So they don't need that. Nate Davis is, you know, got to play this year. Tevin has got to stay healthy. I think injuries retarded the growth of Braxton a little bit last year, because after he hurt his neck, he wasn't quite the same player. That back half of the season, he missed 5 games, and before that he had never missed a snap over his first year and a half. So it's getting the cohesiveness back together, and that's that extra week in preseason is going to help that. The defensive line, like I said, I think they're 1 player away, like I've said all day, and guys like Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens got to take that next step. Now, I think the front office, by just the mere fact that they haven't gone out and signed a veteran defensive tackle, they think they're going to take that step. That's their belief. So, you know, I'm kind of excited to see how those guys go. I thought, if you look at the last 5 games of the year, now Carter from Philadelphia went to University of Georgia. He got all the pub early in the season. Mm-hmm. You watch the last 5 games of the year, regular season, with Philadelphia and Carter, and watch the last 5 with Gervon Dexter. Dexter was a better player.
Much better. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
So, Greg, it's just a couple more questions. The Naj he's curious if Greg thinks this current defense can get over 36 turnovers this season.
Yeah, I mean, part of that's luck. But you've got a group of guys that are now the 3rd year in the system. You got your 2nd year with Stevenson at the corner. Jalen really had a hell of a year last year. They brought in the new safety. He's a ball hawk, and he's going to make Brisker that much better. The difference between, and I like Eddie Jackson, but the difference between who they got now and Eddie Jackson is toughness and physicality. And so I think that's going to help. And just the overall experience. Tremaine Edmonds, second year in the scheme, second year with the team. Same with TJ Edwards. So now they've been together for a full year. And I think because of that, the whole group's going to take a jump. They just got to stay healthy now.
Yeah. Smitty Q, last question, man. Smitty Q wants to know, ask Greg why they didn't draft Rodgers over Cedric Benson, especially considering they talked to him for an hour. I think I heard you get asked that.
We talked to him for an hour after the fact because he walked into the room. And I told that story on my
Wasn't he late, Greg? Wasn't he late?
No, he didn't have an appointment with us. He just knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you guys." And this is after we closed up shop. No more interviews are going on. And Lovey was gone, Jerry was gone, so it was Ron Turner, myself, one other coach, one or two other scouts. That's all it was there. And he was there till 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30. And it was good. But don't forget, people forget, he went 22nd or 23rd.
Yeah, 24th, I want to say. Yeah, he was late.
Yeah, really. And a lot of people, I discussed this on my own podcast a while ago. Nobody has come up with a definitive answer why. I don't think anybody knows why. There's theories, and we had our own theory, is that a lot of people thought, going into that draft, it was between Rodgers and Smith to be that first pick. Mike Nolan was the head coach at San Francisco, and he had charge of the draft too, and he took Smith, decided to take Smith. Well, and that was late in the process. Well, now you got teams, that was the last draft where you had 3 running backs go real high. 3 went in the top 5. Ronnie Brown went second. Ced went 4th to us. Cadillac Williams went 5th to Tampa Bay. I forgot who went 3rd overall. But, people thought that this guy was going to be at worst a top 6, top 7 player. Everybody was passing him. So now it became literally during the draft, what's wrong with him? What did we miss?
Like draft day and Kevin Costner?
Yeah, everybody's passing him. Ted Thompson traded up to get him. Said, I'm going to take him. Nobody else wants him. I'll take him. And at Green Bay, but there was just a lot of question marks, people self-doubting themselves. But one of the theories was, you go into a draft and you're preparing for it and you think of who may be there. And, we were going to take a running back that year. Be honest, I wasn't totally on board with that, but Lovey wanted to, Jerry wanted to, Lovey really wanted Ced. And so that's what I'm a team guy. So that's the way we go. But I can't say I wanted Rodgers because he wasn't really in the conversation. At that point, we had Rex 2 years, and we thought the arrow was going up with Rex. And so, but to get back to what I was saying was that when he started to drop, I don't think teams that were in that 5 to 10, 5 to 12 area even thought he was going to be there. They thought he was going. So they didn't do the prep work on him that you would do going into a draft. And it's he just falls in your lap, but you're scared to take him. And then, like I said, people started questioning, is there something wrong with this guy? Did we miss something? Is it medical? Is it something? Is it something personal that we don't know about? And then all of a sudden he falls down into the low 20s.
Which was crazy. I think the Bears have had a propensity to miss on quarterbacks, but I'm not here to kick the Bears below the waist today because I am so thankful for Greg coming. Greg, this was not nearly enough time. I've got a notebook of stuff questions on top of questions, just things I wanted to talk to you about. I would pray and hope that you would come back one day and join us again and give me another crack at asking you some stuff that I know the fans would really enjoy me asking you. And even that, and still, one of these days, if you could, I would love to talk to some of your former scouts and kind of pick their brains to tell me a little bit more about you guys' process.
Well,
I don't know.
That'd be up to them. That wouldn't be up to me. And most of in fact, all those guys except Phil Emery, who was on my staff originally. He's on my original staff. All those guys are still working in the league.
Wow.
So, that, like I say, that I can't speak for them. I talk to them a lot, but I can't speak for them as far as talking to somebody that they don't know. But as far as coming back, yeah, we'll figure out a time to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much, Greg, because I think the more and more we get to talk, I think it's going to get better and better. And I believe these guys, there's so many questions in there, but I couldn't ask them all. They wanted to know about why you drafted Benson. I know you heard that one, but then someone asked something else. I can't remember, but anyway.
Well, don't forget, Nomad, is that when we took said Benson, everybody was jumping on the frickin' table. Okay, so now you're looking, and may rest in peace. I like said, he had some issues. Part of the issues were that this team, the veterans, those were Thomas Jones guys now.
Yep.
And Lovey wasn't as big on Thomas as the players were.
Really? Wow.
So it's not that Lovey didn't like Thomas, but he thought Ced was going to be better. But the players, Thomas Jones was their guy. And if you knew Thomas Jones, that was a pro's pro now. And so there was a sour situation, and Ced held out as a rookie.
Yep.
He didn't come in until like a week and a half before the season started. It just didn't go. There wasn't a good connection between the rookies and Ced. That carried over into his second year. When he got the ball in training camp, they beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, that's what they.
That wouldn't happen to anybody else, but it happened to him.
That's a lot of guys said.
And so really there was bad feelings between both. And it just Jason McKie was the fullback.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason was on my show a few months ago, and he was talking about it. And his locker there is Thomas Jones was on one side, and Ced was on the other, and he was like the damn preacher in the middle. Listening to both of them, and I don't think Ced and Thomas had a real good relationship, and Ced different type of guy. And like I said, I got along with him good. I really liked him. But I know there's players that didn't, and he was going to do things his way. That's the way he was.
Right. I think, and before you get out of here, Greg, what I think would be a great conversation, and it's probably 24 hours before that big, I think, because I heard it was going to be one huge cut day before the season starts, and who you might predict from these other teams that we may see some upgrades at some of these guys that may be getting cut. We talked about that the other day on the show. I think that'd make a hell of a show with your intellect.
Yeah, but it's way too early to even think about that.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're not going to put it this way. You're not going to bring in a guy unless you know they're better than what you're replacing. And you got to have the money to pay them too. And right now they're getting a little tight. It doesn't look like it on paper, but they haven't signed Roman. They haven't signed Caleb yet. And as being, the number 1 pick and the number 9 pick, they get some pretty good money. And so where on paper it shows they got like $20 million because Mercedes Lewis got $2 million. So that puts them to a little over $20 million in cap space. It's really going to be $10 million in cap space. And there's probably 1 or 2 players they'll still sign before camp. And you got to go into the season with about $7 million in cap space. Now, there's some contracts you can restructure, but you're not going to bring in a player unless he's a definite upgrade. And obviously you can afford him, from a monetary standpoint. So just to say, oh, this guy's available, let's go get him. Like people were saying, who's the defensive end, the pass rusher from New England, he was holding out. They thought he might hold out. And so people were saying, well, we ought to trade for him. And I said, why would New England trade him? He's their best defensive player.
You got to be talking about Judon.
Yeah. And of course he showed up at minicamp and he says, I'm going to be playing here this year. And so right away, people jump to the conclusion that because a guy is having a contractual problem or he says, I want to get traded, that the teams are going to get rid of him. You look at reality, that seldom happens.
Right. Oh my goodness, Greg, I got so much respect for what you do and what you've done, the path that you've walked for 30-something years, and just, the dedication to be able to put those products together to give us something to be entertained by was a sacrifice of time spent and time on task.
That's fun. I won't call it a sacrifice. That was fun. It was fun going to work every day.
Hey, there's nothing like going and doing something you enjoy doing, so it's not work so much, huh?
I'll be honest with you now. It was a race to get to the office first, because I'd be damned if I was going to get there after Jerry.
Right.
It was, Jerry and I worked together in New York, so we were really good friends. And so now, and we're both competitive as hell. So, and he cheats like hell, and we used to play racquetball. So, did you ever hear everybody playing racquetball play with both hands? Jerry's ambidextrous, so if you hit the ball over, so it'd be by the left ball, he'd switch the hand over to his left hand and hit it with the left hand. I said, you can't do that.
Is that a no-no in racquetball? You're not allowed?
What?
Is that a no-no? Is it? I don't know.
I put it this way, I never saw it, but I mean, we were competitive as hell with each other. So then it became, when we were working here together, and his office was right across the hall at Hallows from mine. I'd be damned if I'd let his ass get in there before me. And then I wasn't leaving until after he left. So it was, it was fun. It was all competitiveness.
Those are some great stories, man. I just want you to know we appreciate you so much, Greg. You wanna give everybody what do you got going on at Windy City Gridiron, and what you got?
Well, I'm just finishing up my series on the positions. That's what's coming up next. I got the defensive backs to do, and I think one other position on offense, and then I'll be done with that. What I'm doing after that, I don't know. As far as, I'll think of something to write. But then, of course, I got my weekly podcast. Next week, it's on Tuesday. And, we come up with what we're going to do with that show a day or two before. So,
and shout out to the Barroom Network and Aldo, my buddy Aldo. Greg, man, this was really a treat for us, man. We enjoyed every second of it and cannot wait to see you again, man. This is so much fun talking football with football people, so that the fans really, really enjoy it. They get a real kick out of hearing your voice and how much that those funny stories. I didn't get to the TJ's conversation. That's probably why I'm kind of pissed off right now.
Maybe we can do that next time.
I appreciate it, Greg. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, take care.
You, Greg.
All right, Greg. Thanks.
Take care.
Later.
Take care.
Boy, that was fun. Man, let me shut up, man. I talked the whole time, man. I apologize to you guys. I didn't think I would be able to get him on for more than 20, 30 minutes, but he started feeling good and got rolling, man, and didn't want to really interrupt him. But what'd y'all think about that whole thing, kid?
That was great. I'm surprised you actually asked the Rogers question. I was, Smitty Q was in the chat worried about it. What it do, Smitty Q? He was a little worried. He's like, man, come on, ask Greg some tough stuff on the way out. Give him a curveball. The curveball's your question, bro. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure if we're gonna actually ask about.
Was that the Cedric Benson question?
That was the Cedric Benson, Aaron Rodgers question, and he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, there it is. It's on the screen right now. Let's see how this goes." And it went just fine. He took it in stride, and that's a great question to ask Greg Gabriel, to be honest with you. And he took it in stride, gave us the most honest answer that he could. Cedric was a bit of a head case according to Thomas Jones and Greg Gabriel. So it just didn't pan out. Outside of that, hey, love what he did with the squad, and love his insight across the board. I
believe I can remember a time or two him getting a little bit snippy about that question. Yeah, he's probably getting a little bit tired of answering that one, because
that's why I was kind of surprised that you were going to ask it, because I know that's a sensitive one. It's got to be a little bit sensitive. But like I say, he took it in stride and gave us a pretty conscientious answer with respect to it. The one we missed, and we can bat this one around if you want, was from Mr. Inglewood 77. I'll even throw it up on the screen. Wanted us to ask Greg if we should examine signing Chandler Jones as an edge. So I'm gonna say gonna touch this at first and just say, like, Chandler Jones is 34 years old. So that's the first thing to say. Second thing to say is I'm not so sure if he's really actually lost a step. And why I'm gonna say that is because I'm not sure if we saw him play at all last season. He signed with the Raiders. There was some sort of an altercation where he was trying to get into the Raiders facility to do a workout, and they like locked him out. I'm not sure if that was a purposeful thing or what, but he made some mention online about it. He was not pleased, and the response was, "Oh, like Chandler is going through his own little personal stuff, so like just ignore that. Don't worry about it." So they kind of spun it back on him, which is like classic Josh McDaniels thing to do. Like it just screams Josh McDaniels. At the end of the day, a couple of days later, or by the end of September, he's off the team. So he's probably out there floating in the wind thinking maybe I could play football again, maybe not. Again, at the right price, I'm not so sure if he's lost a step, and it might be an interesting conversation for somebody to have.
He ain't lost nothing. If you don't mind, Bishop, I got to hop over to Sean because I know Sean's got to get the hell out of here. But what did you think about that whole thing, Sean?
I got a hard out of 220, so I just got a text on 220, so I got to bounce. It was good. It was good. I mean, I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing because I was doing some other stuff here and trying to medicate myself and some other stuff. But he's definitely one to know, man. People like that are people you listen to. Now, you don't have to agree with them. No, you don't got to like them. But you want to hear from guys who are in the know. You want to hear guys who are making those decisions. You want to hear guys whose opinion mattered in the formation of this team. And so when you get a guy like that, man, it's good. I think I had him on once a long time ago, right? But yeah, it was good, man. It was good to, and the fact that you knew him from the other network, it's a lot easier when you have a prior relationship with somebody. So it was good, man. I like his takes, and yeah, it was good.
What say you, Bishop?
For me, man, it's always a learning experience anytime I listen to Greg Gabriel, man, because each time, no matter what the topic is, even if he's repeating something, you learn, you always take away something, and it's always good to be able to learn. I respect my elders first and foremost, but somebody that's put in the amount of time that this guy has put into the game, and his relationships that he has throughout the league, but more importantly, his relationship that he has with the organization. And when he speaks about the Bears, man, I'm all ears, because you can never, in life, man, you're never too old to learn something new, I
Okay.
feel, and to listen to a guy with that much wisdom who has really done it, and has done it to the level that he has, and the fact that he is so respected that even today he still get asked questions and asked to provide reports and different things. Man, you can't do nothing. But for me, it was I was cool with the show being just Greg today, man, because I got a chance to really listen and learn. So I enjoyed it, man.
You know what, man? And I'm talking to all the No Maniacs and everybody that's watching the show live. If you have not hit the like button, please stop for a second and go make sure you do that. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button for both us over here at the Nomad Network and plus Sean over there at Sports Zone Chicago, man. We greatly appreciate it, man. We're trying to grow and build these communities out to what you want them to be. But what I want to say to that, what Keith was just talking about, I think while he's here, you give him his flowers, man. I don't know that the Bears really, the fans really appreciate what a great resource he is to this Bears podcast community. He can go from place to place and spread his knowledge. I think you guys ought to suck that up just like a vacuum cleaner, man. We're just privileged to have a resource like that available to us to talk to during our podcast. So I just really do appreciate him, and that's real when I told him that. Anybody else?
I'm with you, man. I mean,
You said it right.
it's nothing else. You can put an exclamation point on it, man. I mean, that guy is a walking encyclopedia. That's the easiest way to sum it up. He's a walking encyclopedia.
He is. There's so many questions we could have actually asked Greg and did not. And upside is, we have some level of access to Greg. We'll try and approach those questions down the road. Like, I'd really like to understand his path to becoming the scout that he became, and how others could potentially do the same. But again, another question for another day. A little bit of love to our guy Plank out there for the $2 super chat. Plank, big respect. Chat, definitely get the likes up. Please, show us some love on the way out if you can. We would always appreciate that.
You wanna give us some pleasantry since it's on you already, kids? We're gonna get ready to wrap this thing on up.
Well, it's on me, No Maniacs. It's Wednesday, and we gave you a little bit of a wild card here with Greg Gabriel. Hope you enjoyed the interview. I definitely did. Give you guys a little bit of love because I wasn't able to do so earlier in the show. Let's run it down the line. Both the Smitties are here today. What it do, Smitty 1 and Smitty Q. Crimson's with us, Jake Griese. Juku off the dub. What it do, Juku? And I'm sure I'm butchering that, but hey, we can chop it up about that later on. James Ford's with us. Patty Laura. Hey, Patty. Just B, Florida Bears fan. Our guy Plank, always the number one no maniac out there, Plank. Say what's up to She Plank for me. McFact, Victor Tangent, Vizo Joe. How you doing, Joe? Bruha, my guy in Canada. What's cracking, Bruha? Dorn Shaver. Who else we got out there? Michael Copeland's with us today. Evie Bear Down Davis. How's it going, Evie? Scottish Bear. You're up a little. You're up late, Scottish Bear.
Smitty said $5 super chat. Don Burr, we don't like your ass.
No love for Don Burr, according to Smitty, and I would have to co-sign on that one. FFG style, what's cracking? FFG. I think that rounds out just about everybody. I think I may have missed one or two of you. Hopefully I didn't. If I don't, I'll get you on the way back to on Friday. J2K. Oh, our guy Triple R Sports Chicago style dropped in to say what's up. Kenny Adams was with us for a bit today. Arturo Arnold. Who else we got? Anybody else? Mr. Englewood 77. I think that rounds it out. Anyhow, throw it down to my guy Bishop. The rest of y'all know maniacs. Enjoy. We're getting closer to the season. Sooner or later, there will be eventually some football being played, and we will be all ears and eyes. Bishop.
Well, I'm gonna pass it to Sean because I know Sean got to get out of here, and then I'll round it out. So, Sean, I'm gonna pass it to you, and then I'm gonna kick it out. So,
Sports owners at No Maniacs Unite. Great interview today. Good stuff. Anytime you get a chance to talk to somebody who's in the room, who's in the decision-making process, you're all ears. All right, you're all ears, and he's done it for quite a long time, for decades. And I think that's a great thing. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube channel. All right, I'd appreciate it. And man, let's get back at it on Friday.
Before you get going, Bishop, hey, shout out to King Buchenwald for the $2 super chat. Team from top to bottom feels different. I don't know if I agree with a chat in a long time as much as I agree with King Buchenwald here. I do think this feels different for a whole bunch of different reasons, man. And I don't think, what the good thing about it is, King, is I think he's still a couple, 2 or 3 pieces. I'm talking about going into the season left to grab. I think it might be 2, 3 pieces he might grab before the season to get even better. So it does feel pretty good, man, and it does feel different. No question about it. Thank you for that, King. But go ahead.
What? Big love to King Booker World. I miss you on that, and I deserve to be slapped for it. You rock with us every day. Big love to you, and thanks, respect for the $2 super chat, and a little bit of love for Left Hand. Back at you, Nomad.
Go ahead. It's on the Bishop.
Oh,
well,
Bishop.
Hey, well, once again, I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us, man. You guys hung out with us again for a little past an hour, as you always do. You guys rock with us each and every day that we get out here and drop this content on you. Didn't get a chance to throw out any pleasantries, so I'm gonna do it on my way out the door. I'm gonna, because I know that they was listening anyway, and that is my number one lady, Sharita, out there in Chi-Town, my sister Felicia, my boy V-Dub out there in the D, out there on that truck. Be safe, my brother, and my boy Stuart and my niece Sophie out there in Florida. Man, appreciate y'all always chiming in and rocking with your boy and supporting the network. Do appreciate it, as well as for the No Maniacs and Sports Zoners that's always in the chat, and those that don't get a chance to jump in the chat, but they listening anyway. Really do appreciate it. big ups and thank you to Mr. Greg Gabriel. Like I said, for me, I'm a fan. I love listening to him. I try to catch his show as often as I can because I always take something away from it each and every time that man speaks, because again, like I said, he's a walking encyclopedia. And big ups to you, man, for getting him on the show. Hey, that right there alone, man, like I said, for me today, I got a chance to sit back, listen and learn and just take it all in. But once again, I'm going to say it as I always say, I'm ready for some football. Let's go. So with that being said, before I pass it to you, man, Chi-Town, Chi-City, West Side, South Side, all of Chi-Town, stand up. Nomad, to you, my brother.
Thank you for that, bro. And Dr. Earl, thank you for the $5 super chat. We very much appreciate it, man. I saw every comment that you made. Yes, that reach out absolutely happened on Aldo's show. And I spoke to him, and he agreed right away to come on the show. So thank Greg Gabriel for being that gracious, man, and actually following through with his words. He absolutely did agree to it on Aldo's show. So appreciate you, Dr. Earl, for that. We got one more super chat to get to. Who is this? We got Jay Griese with the 190 chat. Now it's our turn to rep that North, Don Burr. Hey, you got it coming, Don. I'm telling you, man, you in for some hard times this year. I know y'all think y'all got a pretty good team. You can't take nothing away from them. They the champs. Got to give them they just do. But y'all in for a problem this year, Don. I hate to tell you that. And I'm just talking real football stuff. I see real. If you guys had a problem with that team last year, wait till you get to dealing with this team coming up forward, man. So I'm telling you, Don Burr, man, you ain't gonna be talking so much stuff here pretty soon. But that being said, man, we're gonna get ready to get out of here. Let me take that down so that I can get to the outro. Hey, man, I appreciate Greg Gabriel for being here. I said that a lot of times, but I really mean it. For him to give his time to us, the fans, we want to talk football. We want to hear it from people that spent 30-something plus years dealing with this stuff and putting together the product that we're all judging right now, man. So I just think he's a treasure to us as podcasters and us as a fan base. I just really appreciate him and cannot wait for him to come back. But with that being said, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came and showed up. One little quick word. I think I say this enough times, but I don't ever think I can say it enough times. But please protect your good energy. Protect your good energy. And with that being said, let me leave you with these famous words. If you can think it, you can see it, then you can manifest it. With that being said, we are out.